The creature was dying. It lay there in the mud, breath shallow, its massive form trembling with exhaustion. Thick, blue-black fur clung to its body, matted with blood and filth. Whatever had attacked, it had been relentless, leaving deep gashes across its flanks and a wound at its side that still leaked a slow trickle of dark ichor. Anyone else would have walked past, given it a merciful death, or more likely kept their distance. But Jason wasn't anyone else. He crouched beside the beast, watching the faint rise and fall of its ribs. It was still alive, barely. His first instinct was to call it and report the injured animal to the outpost. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way its 6 golden eyes flickered open, locking onto his with something that almost looked like understanding. Maybe it was the quiet, resigned way it didn't try to struggle as he reached for his medkit. Or maybe it was just human nature, his nature to help. The jungle world of Viritus 4 was supposed to be a simple scouting mission. The Terran Exploration Corps had deemed it low risk, with only minor hostile fauna and no signs of advanced civilization. A perfect candidate for future colonization. But Jason had spent enough time on the frontier to know that low risk was just another way of saying, we have no idea what's really down there. And now, as he worked quickly, sealing wounds with synth flesh and administering a shot of biofoam, he was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, Virides 4 wasn't as empty as they'd thought. The creature let out a low, shuddering breath, its body relaxing slightly. Jason sat back on his heels, running a hand through his sweat-damp hair. "There," he muttered. "That should hold you together." It was only then that he noticed the collar. Slick with blood and dirt, it was barely visible beneath the thick fur, but as Jason brushed his fingers over it, he felt the unmistakable ridges of intricate alien craftsmanship. The material was unlike anything he'd seen, smooth, almost organic, pulsing faintly under his touch. This wasn't some wild animal. This thing belonged to someone. A sudden, sharp chime in his earpiece made him flinch. "Jason!" A voice crackled through the comm, tense and urgent. "You need to get back to base. Now." He frowned. "What's going on?" "We picked up an energy signature. Big. Military grade. Someone's here, and they're looking for something." A pause. "Or someone." Jason looked down at the beast, at the strange collar still faintly humming beneath his fingers. He exhaled slowly. He hadn't just saved an injured animal. He'd found something important. Something that someone, maybe something, was willing to kill for. And if they were coming, that meant he was already out of time. Jason's pulse hammered in his ears. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. The weight of the realization settled in his gut like cold iron. He had just patched up something that wasn't supposed to be here. Worse, something that belonged to someone powerful enough to send a military force after it. That meant he had 2 choices: leave it and get back to base, or take it with him and figure out what the hell he'd just stumbled into. The creature shifted weakly, its golden eyes flickering between exhaustion and something else. Trust? No, that wasn't right. Recognition. As if it knew something he didn't. That unsettled him more than the approaching threat. The comm in his ear crackled again. "Jason, move. Orbital scans show inbound ships. Vector suggests they're not ours." A beat of static. "They're not broadcasting an ID." Not good. Unidentified ships never meant good news. Jason had been on enough colony operations to know how these things played out. Pirates, slavers, rogue planetary factions, everyone wanted a piece of what humanity had built, especially on the frontier. And while Earth had clawed its way into galactic relevance through sheer stubbornness and a refusal to stay beaten, their enemies had learned one crucial thing: humans didn't back down. That was why the Terran Exploration Corps existed, to push deeper, establish footholds, and keep expanding before someone else could box them in. The problem was, that kind of ambition made enemies. And if someone had the guts to send military-grade assets after whatever this thing was, then Jason had just become the inconvenient variable in someone's plan. He stood, wiping his bloody hands on his pants, mind racing through scenarios. The creature couldn't move on its own. If he left it, its owner would find either a corpse or a rescue target. Either way, they'd know someone had been here. But if he took it, another sharp tone in his ear. They just broke Atmo. 3 ships. Small, fast. No comms. Jason, get out of there. 3 ships. Not a full strike force, but enough firepower to level a landing site. These weren't scavengers. They were professionals. He exhaled sharply. Not an option. I've got a situation down here. A pause. What kind of situation? The kind where I found something I shouldn't have. Silence. Then, more carefully, define something. Jason glanced at the creature. Its breathing was steadier now, though its body still trembled with weakness. He reached down, gripping the edge of the collar, feeling the faint, rhythmic pulse beneath his fingers. This wasn't just a pet. This thing was important. Their target, he said grimly. The silence stretched longer this time. Jason, the voice finally said, quieter now, if you have what they want, they will not stop. You know that? Yeah. He knew. And that was the problem. Because if they were coming, that meant they weren't expecting resistance. They thought they'd land, grab what was theirs, and leave. Jason looked toward the sky. They had no idea what they were walking into. Jason didn't wait. He crouched, looping his arms under the massive creature's torso, gritting his teeth as he hauled it up. It groaned but didn't resist. Either it was too weak or it had decided for reasons beyond his understanding that it trusted him. That trust might get them both killed. His boots sank into the jungle floor as he pushed forward, eyes locked on the canopy above. The 3 incoming ships meant he had minutes, maybe less, before they started deploying ground teams. The extraction point was too far. He wouldn't make it before they found him, which meant he needed a new plan. Back at camp, his scout ship was too small to take a fight to orbit, but it had something he could use an active camouflage field. Not perfect, not military grade, but enough to buy time. If he could just get there before, a distant boom cracked through the sky. Then another. His earpiece flared to life with frantic voices. Jason! Orbital defenses just lit up. Those ships are hostile. He swore under his breath. This wasn't just a retrieval team. This was an operation. A full-scale precision strike against a supposedly uninhabited planet. Which meant someone, somewhere, had leaked information. And that meant humans weren't just in danger from whatever was coming down, they were compromised from within. He picked up speed. The weight of the creature slowed him, but he didn't dare stop. He could already hear the low hum of approaching engines, cutting through the dense jungle air. Meanwhile, above him, unseen forces were already moving. Deep in the Terran Exploration Corps headquarters, Admiral Sato leaned over a holo display, jaw clenched as enemy signatures lit up the board. The ships bore no official markings, but he recognized the configuration, the angular hulls, the aggressive drive signatures. HFY warlords. Pirates in name only. These were mercenary lords who operated on the fringes of legality, taking contracts too dirty for the galactic elite to officially sanction. If they were here, then someone with influence had sent them. And that narrowed the list of suspects considerably. On the diplomatic front, humanity was supposed to be neutral. They weren't aligned with any galactic superpower, weren't part of the Dominion or the Concordance. They traded with everyone, owed loyalty to no one. It was the only reason Earth still had breathing room. But if word got out that human explorers had intercepted something valuable, something worth sending an armed recovery team for, then neutrality wouldn't last. And Sato wasn't Navi enough to think that was an accident. Someone wanted war. Back on Viridis 4, Jason was nearly at the clearing when a shrill ping blared in his earpiece. Proximity alert. They were here. He dropped to a knee, forcing the creature down with him as he peered through the foliage. A sleek black dropship had landed less than 50 meters away, steam hissing as its ramp lowered. He counted 6 armored figures stepping out, weapons raised. Then, to his horror, one of them spoke. Not in an alien tongue. Not in garbled translator speak. In perfect English. Find the scout. Kill him if you have to, but retrieve the beast intact. Jason's blood ran cold. This wasn't just an alien operation. Humans were working with them. Jason pressed himself lower against the jungle floor, barely breathing as the armored figures advanced. The leader moved with the confidence of someone who expected no resistance. They weren't searching. They were hunting. And Jason was the prey. He glanced at the injured creature beside him. Its massive chest rose and fell in shallow, pained breaths. Whatever it was, these Merces wanted it alive, and that meant it was worth something. Maybe a bargaining chip, maybe a weapon. Either way, it meant he had leverage if he could survive long enough to use it. A voice crackled in his earpiece. "Jason, you still breathing?" He tapped his comm twice, silent confirmation. Talking would get him killed. "Good. Listen, we intercepted enemy chatter. This isn't just a recovery op. They've got an inside man on the station. If we don't shut them down now, Earth's position in the treaty negotiations is gone. We'll be locked out, or worse, marked as hostiles." Jason's jaw tightened. That explained the human voices. Someone was feeding them information, ensuring they moved undetected. If the rest of the galaxy turned against Earth, no amount of tactical brilliance would save them. They weren't a galactic empire. They didn't have centuries of expansion behind them. They had grit, they had technology, and they had one undeniable truth: humans didn't back down. But this was something new. Jason's fingers found the emergency beacon on his wrist. He could call in a strike, wipe the landing site off the map, but that would kill the creature too, along with any answers it held. No, he needed a different approach. A human approach. He exhaled slowly, forcing his pulse to steady, and reached for the small charge pack at his belt. It wasn't a weapon. It was worse. A local EMP disruptor, strong enough to fry unshielded electronics within a 100-meter radius. The dropship? Dead. The Merce's visors? Blacked out. His own gear? Worthless. But he'd take those odds. He activated the timer 3 seconds. The leader took another step, rifle sweeping the brush. Jason saw the moment they spotted him just as the charge detonated. A sharp crack of energy sent a shockwave rippling through the clearing. The dropship's lights flickered, then died. The Merce shouted in confusion as their helmets failed, their weapons shorting out in their hands. Jason moved. He was on the first one before they even registered what had happened, driving a shoulder into their chest and sending them sprawling. He grabbed a weapon from the ground, flipping it in his hands. Useless. The EMP had done its job. Good. Because Jason didn't need a gun. He just needed time. He grabbed the injured creature, hauling it onto his back as the Merce struggled to recover. He wouldn't win in a fight. Not here. Not outnumbered. But humans? Humans didn't always need to win the fight. They just needed to change the game. And Jason was about to do just that. Jason sprinted through the undergrowth, every breath burning in his chest as he carried the wounded beast over his shoulder. The Merce behind him weren't just recovering, they were adapting. Shouts echoed through the jungle, distorted by failing comms but still clear enough. They weren't retreating, they were repositioning, and that meant he was running out of time. He didn't have a ship, didn't have reinforcements. His only advantage was the dense jungle and the fact that, unlike his pursuers, he could improvise. But before he could plan his next move, his earpiece crackled. Jason, pull back now. We have a bigger problem. The urgency in the voice sent a chill down his spine. He ducked behind a massive root system, keeping the creature shielded as he whispered back, "Define bigger." Static. Then a voice, quiet but firm. "They know about the vault." Jason froze. The vault wasn't just a weapon cache. It wasn't some forgotten relic from humanity's early spacefaring days. It was the fail-safe, a contingency so old that even Earth's current leaders barely understood it. If someone had cracked it open, if an enemy had gotten their hands on what was inside, then humanity's last true advantage in this war was gone. "Who?" Jason whispered, his grip tightening on the beast's fur. "Who has it?" A pause. Then the answer came, cold and final. Not an enemy. Not exactly. It's them. Jason's mind raced. There was only one group that could breach the vault, only one faction that had the knowledge and the sheer arrogance to claim what lay hidden inside. The Exiles. Humanity's lost fleet. Centuries ago, in humanity's desperate bid to establish itself among the stars, there had been a schism. A fleet had vanished into the void, refusing to abide by the restrictions of the Galactic Accords. They had taken experimental technology, war doctrines deemed too dangerous, and ships so advanced they bordered on legend. Some believed they had died out. Others feared they were waiting, biding their time. Now, they were back. And if they had breached the vault, then they weren't just waiting, they were acting. Jason's grip tightened on the injured creature. If the Exiles had resurfaced, then the war wasn't just between Earth and the Mercs anymore. It wasn't just a struggle for survival. It was something else entirely. A reckoning. The jungle around him flickered as something massive passed overhead. Jason barely had time to look up before the sky ripped apart, a rift of pure energy splitting the clouds as human ships, descended like ghosts from the past. Their hulls were blackened with time, their designs eerily unfamiliar yet undeniably Earthborn. And then the first transmission came through, cutting through every frequency. "This is Admiral Kane of the Black Horizon. You've squandered your chance at peace. Now, we take what is ours." Jason's blood ran cold, because the Exiles hadn't come to save humanity. They had come to replace it. Jason had seconds to decide. The Exiles were making their move, and every instinct screamed that this wasn't a rescue. It was an overthrow. The mercenaries hunting him were no longer the immediate threat. Humanity itself was now on the brink of being outmaneuvered by its own lost kin. He adjusted the beast on his shoulder and pushed forward, weaving through the dense jungle as the first bolts of plasma rained down from the sky. The Exile ships weren't wasting time. They were landing, deploying forces with military precision, cutting off escape routes, securing key locations. This wasn't hesitation. This was a coup. Jason's calm crackled again. They're overriding Earth's defense network. They're locking us out of our own systems. A muscle in his jaw tightened. Not all our systems. He reached a clearing and dropped to one knee, pulling a small device from his belt. It looked unassuming, a simple transmitter, no bigger than his palm. But this was no ordinary signal beacon. This was old tech, predating Earth's alliance with the galactic community. A relic from before the Exiles had vanished. He activated it. For a long, agonizing second, nothing happened. Then, deep beneath the surface of the planet, something woke up. The ground trembled. The sky flickered, the Exile ship's engines stuttering mid-flight as an energy surge radiated outward, disrupting their sophisticated systems. Across the planet, long-forgotten silos and bunkers installations hidden even from Earth's own modern military came online. Jason's earpiece buzzed with a new transmission. A voice, old yet unwavering, cut through the chaos. "You have invoked the Covenant Protocol. Stand by for activation." Jason didn't breathe. No one really knew what the Covenant Protocol was. It was a last resort, a fail-safe buried so deep in humanity's history that even Earth's top strategists considered it myth. But Jason had suspected. He had pieced together fragments of old military logs, deciphered the warnings left behind in the vault's encrypted files. And now, the answer revealed itself. The Exiles had taken advanced warships. They had taken forgotten weapons. But they had not taken everything. Because deep beneath the surface, locked away for centuries, was humanity's first attempt at a true war fleet. One not bound by the treaties that had softened Earth's military presence. A fleet built for one purpose: to reclaim what was lost. The jungle shook as hidden launch platforms tore through the landscape. Massive, angular ships, designs long abandoned, yet unmistakably human, began to rise. Their hulls bore no insignia, no modern identification codes. Only a single phrase was etched into the metal, one that sent a chill through Jason's spine. "We end wars. The exiles thought they were the last remnants of a forgotten war. They thought they were taking back their birthright. But they weren't the only ones who had been waiting. And now, humanity's original war machines were waking up. Jason watched as the ancient war fleet rose into the sky, their engines humming with a deep, resonant power that had not been heard in centuries. The exiles faltered. Their ships, so confident only moments ago, hesitated as systems failed, their command structure cracking under the weight of something older, something more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. A voice broke through the comms, steady and cold. Command acknowledged. Exile forces are to stand down immediately or face full retaliation. The exiles didn't surrender, not at first. They fired upon the old ships, desperate to maintain their advantage. But the moment the first blast was absorbed by a shielding system they didn't recognize, their fate was sealed. The war fleet responded not with hesitation, not with warning shots, but with a brutal efficiency that only came from a force built for war. It was over in minutes. Jason stood among the trees, the injured beast at his side, watching the sky turn into a battlefield, and then, suddenly, silence. The Exile flagship, once the mightiest vessel in orbit, drifted powerless, its engines cut, its crew silent. Across every frequency, a single message played: the war is over. Jason exhaled, feeling the weight lift from his chest, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Back on Earth, leaders scrambled to make sense of what had happened. The return of the lost war fleet shook the balance of power. The exiles, once humanity's greatest internal threat, were now prisoners of their own arrogance. But the real question remained, what now? Jason found himself in a meeting unlike any before. Human generals, diplomats, and historians sat in stunned silence as they faced the newly awakened commanders of the ancient fleet. They were not rogue AI. They were not ghosts of a forgotten era. They were human warriors who had never believed the war was over. And now, with their systems reactivated, they had one question of their own. Do we stand down? It would have been easy to unleash them, to let them sweep across the stars and reclaim everything humanity had lost. But Jason saw something in their eyes, a question they had never been allowed to ask. Was war all they were made for? No, Jason said, and for a long moment the silence was unbearable. Then the old commander, a man whose name had been wiped from history, nodded. We await new orders. And with that, the future changed. The exiles were given a choice: live among the people they abandoned or leave for the stars, never to return. Some chose exile once more. Others knelt, surrendering their war-hardened lives to something greater. The awakened fleet did not return to sleep. Instead, they were repurposed not as conquerors, but as guardians, ensuring humanity would never be caught unprepared again. As Jason left the meeting, the beast at his side let out a low, contented growl. He reached down, scratching behind its ears. Guess we both found a new purpose.